Okay.
Good afternoon. It is Connecting Connections and More with Brian J. and our very special summer co-host, Brandi Srat. So we're going to try to keep you past this summer. But Brandi, welcome to Connecting Communities. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us on a long-term basis. You came in and hung out with us with Ryan last season, and
Right.
we got a lot of good comments and a lot of questions. So I thought, why not flip it around? And when I was looking for some new co-hosts for the summer session, you were definitely on the top of my list. So folks that don't know you, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, Brandi?
Sure. So I'm Brandi Surratt, and I am owner of the Pax Rat Concierge. Um, Basically, what we are is a small business concierge company. So we help facilitate um, or solve all the issues that small businesses have across, not just here in Toledo, but across the U.S. So from consulting to marketing to IT. We're kind of your one-stop shop. So that's who we are, and that's what we do.
And it's crazy the way you started because it wasn't even in the business piece when you started
Oh,
talking about that concierge, right?
right. So we started off as a home concierge, providing services for like laundry and things like that for home. Um, but because I have been in the corporate industry and corporate America for so long, I was already doing that like privately and consulting with folks, and so I decided to make that the full time focus.
Makes sense, right?
Hmm.
And now that's been since you've been new, since you relocated, and I say new, 2 years, right?
Yeah, since we moved here from Dallas to the Toledo area, but yeah.
Wasn't the first time you were here in the Toledo? Didn't you leave and come
So
back?
yeah, so we were here for 5 years before. Moved here from Tennessee. My husband was working for Dana at that time. Relocated, lived here for 5 years. He took a job in East Texas. We lived in East Texas for about a year and a half, left there, went to North Texas for about a year and a half, and now we're back.
And now we're back.
Hmm.
Talk about traveling through America, right? And you're not even part of the armed forces. And
I
you've
know.
already, how many states have you hit? Do you have a track or a number?
We have lived in three states. Three
Okay.
states that we've lived in probably 5 or 6 different cities. Probably 5 different homes in the last few years.
Okay. Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we're tired.
Does I bet you are. I bet Tom is to your left, depending on where you're seeing this. Tom, raise your hand, say hi. Tom Smith is my all-state guy. He could be your all-state guy too. I am sure that hearing 5 homes, you were like, "Oh, 5 homes. We can put that all together."
Yeah, we had Allstate for a long time. So yeah, we were already in the family.
Yeah, I love it. It's simple, it's easy.
Mhm.
The only time I have to call Tom is when I have to change my credit card number.
Oh,
That's it. It's the only time I got to call him, right?
that's good.
When my card expires. Luckily, but I've heard stories of you picking up the phone. I think one of the running jokes that we kind of laugh at a lot is that Sonia has to be very open to that because you're getting phone calls on New Year's Eve. You are that guy, Tom. You have their back. Tom's got your back, right?
Right. Well, I think it's important to be available for your clients. If not, what are you really paying for? If you're not paying for somebody, I don't want my clients calling a 1-800 number. I want them calling me.
Right.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, and it's not even to the point of, you're constantly, upselling them, right? Let's be honest. We always have those upsells, right? But there's only so much upsell you can do when you're insurance. It's truly about that relationship at that point and really trying to figure out what the best scenario is. That in those casual conversations, realizing, hey, you just got a motorcycle. Do you know that you have to have this coverage or this boat coverage? I've been doing research as you and I have talked about some different things and some toys that we're looking to get. I didn't realize you had to have all of this stuff. Like for a quad, like you can only have it on one property. If you take it someplace else, there's a whole other. Tom, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Okay. Well, if you have a quad, it can be covered under your homeowner's policy if you're just going to use it on your own land to maintain the land. But the minute you start taking it to, you know, the trails and the parks and stuff like that, then you need the liability insurance, and you need a separate policy, just like you would for a car, except, you know, it's much, much less expensive than car insurance. But
Right. Yeah, I had no clue. I've been driving illegally in Pennsylvania. Thing.
Well, it depends. I mean, you're not legally required to have it in Ohio. I don't know about Pennsylvania, but if you had a problem, you would be sorry you didn't have it.
Right. No, it's one of those things you never need. You never know you need it until you don't have it. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us a little about yourself. How did you start in the insurance? So you have a little bit of a history in the making as well.
Yeah, I started out in insurance about 15 years ago. I didn't think I was going to get into insurance. I had just sold a carpentry business that I had run with my father for 20 years, and really wasn't looking for a job. I was being a handyman, and my son was really young, so I got to stay at home with him at the time and then go work handyman jobs at night or on weekends. And you know, playing music for a living also. So between those two, I was paying my bills and I was pretty happy. But my ex-wife worked for State Farm, and she was a liaison between the agents and the national company. And one of their agents started after me, trying to get me to come work for him. And I kept telling him no. But eventually he called me one day and he's like, Tom, I just had two people, you know, quit on me. Can you come in and help me for a month or so until I can find somebody else? And
how it all starts. So that's how they always get you. Just a couple days, 2 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But what I learned most about the business then is that the only thing that sets you apart from, you know, calling up Geico or having an online company is having somebody who's gonna have your back and who's gonna sit down and get to know you and go over what you have, what you need to protect. Everybody's different. We call it handling the risks of everyday life and protecting what you own and you've worked so hard for. You know, it would be silly to lose your 401k and everything that you've saved because you were improperly covered, and what you could have had might have only cost you $5 a month more, and then you wouldn't have lost everything. You know, it's a fine line. We got to be able to design a package that you can afford. You know, I can't sell everybody, you know, top end everything, you know, because they can't afford it. And if I sell you something you can't afford, I'm not helping you either. So
right, that's the tough. No, I mean to cut you off. That's the tough piece. Like, where do you find that pricing point? Because we're in a world where they have trained us to look for the lower cost. It's no longer about the lower service. Like, they don't say you're paying less because you're getting less, right? They just train us to say look for less.
Right, and you generally, insurance is like everything else. You do get what you pay for. You know, if you're going to go with a company that doesn't have agents, you're not going to have the service. You're not going to talk to the same person every time you call who already knows you. You know, you're not going to have your agent's cell phone number in your phone that you can call on Friday night at 7:00 when your daughter just, you know, bumped a tree or something. You know,
New Year's Eve. You were available New Year's Eve.
Right. So and so what you do is you just got to sit down and tailor a package to everybody. Everybody's different. You have to see what makes sense, what's important to them, and go from there.
I would agree with that. Brandi, what do you think about that when it comes to client service or customer service? I mean, that's what you do. At the end of the day, you are fulfilling a need. And so, I mean, that goes hand in hand on you. It's not just about bringing you this or getting you that. It's those little extras, you feel?
Oh, yeah. And I think it's important to explain value when you're talking to your customer versus cost. Because if I tell you this is what it's going to cost at the end of the month, that can be jarring. But if they can see the value and if they can make real-time connection with how is this going to help me, how this is further what I really need, I think that does the trick once people can make that real-time connection.
Yeah, I agree. One of the ways that I like to show that benefit or value is that we'll break it down. Okay, you're going to do social media. How many hours a week do you think that's going to take you to do? And they'll tell me, 5 hours a week. I say, okay. And how many hours a week do you think you're really going to do it? Because those are two different numbers, right? And then they'll tell me, 3. I'm like, okay. So some social media is not going to get done. We're already there, you know? So once they see that number and they're like, oh, I have to invest myself in at, X amount of hours to do this, then that dollar amount is a little bit easier for them to understand, very much like you with explaining that value purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge value in both of what you folks do. When you're looking at benefits, Brandi, what do you feel like the benefits are of having a concierge? Which I love that word because that's one of those words like tomato, right? You can say a couple of different ways. So, and keep that on because we're going to have a variety of different ways topic here shortly that I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, say your question one more time.
Not okay, I got distracted myself. So I'm like, wait a minute, what am I saying? I'm writing it down so I don't forget, right? That's hilarious. What do you, I feel like I need to rewind it so I know exactly what I'm supposed to be saying. Customer service, the value of that, how do you feel like you are communicating that effectively with like the concierge? Like, where is that value of that specific service?
Yeah, so typically I always liken it to when you go to a hotel and you check in and you say, where's the closest grocery store? And they say, oh, here's the grocery store. We can send someone to get that. And we'll just bring it right up to you, right? So if you think of a concierge in the same manner where you are only reaching out to me at the help desk saying, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, the benefit is you're not having to contact multiple companies if it's marketing that you need, or if it's consulting, if it's an HR guideline, whatever. You're not having to reach out to multiple places. We're basically your one-stop shop. So explaining it to my customers is saying, hey, I'm going to give you a detailed update as to where we are throughout this process. You're only reaching out to one person, then you have a paper trail. That's going to minimize the time you need to do anything. But it's also in terms of cost, you're going to be saving costs, whereas you would typically be hiring these larger firms who basically just give you a number and you reach out to whoever's at that help desk. You're going to be getting a consistent concierge with me. So that's the value. People typically want to work with one person. They want to be able to reach out to one person and get one thing done. On my end, on the back end, I'm facilitating all the other needs to ensure that we get all of our, those things taken care of for our customers. So that's the benefit. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind until the bill comes. But other than that, the client doesn't really have to do much. So that is the best thing for us, especially when you talk about the small business owner who doesn't have a lot of time. They don't have a HR department. They don't have a marketing department, but having one person that can facilitate all of that is much better value for them. And for especially if they can do it at a reasonable cost.
Absolutely. So do you find it a little bit more difficult to, I'm not a firm believer, let me phrase that, I'm not a fan of convincing people on why they need to market. It's one of those things that they either realize they do or they don't. Right. After like the third conversation, it's pretty clear to me that there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to convince those people. For you, how do you convince them where people think are optional insurances, health insurance, not health insurance, sorry, life insurance?
Well, that's a tough one. How do you convince somebody who doesn't see the value in a product? Okay. A lot of insurance guys or people will use fear to sell. I try not to do that, okay? But sometimes pointing out what can happen if you don't have it is the only way to get them to see the value in it. Yeah. I prefer to tell stories. Remember, it's probably been over a year now, they had a couple of workers who actually died in the grain elevators at Anderson's. And this guy was in his late 20s, and he had a couple of kids and a wife, and he also had a life insurance policy with me. So the kids and the wife had the emotional and the spiritual and all that they had to deal with, but they didn't have to move out of their house into an apartment. They didn't have to give up the piano lessons and the baseball team and stuff like that, because there was enough money that they could take some time to recover, and they didn't have to think about the financial.
So explain to me, and I'm sure you get asked this all the time. It's a no-brainer. I have insurance on my phone. I have insurance on my tablet, right? But I remember there being a time in my life, in my 20s, maybe even 30s, that I had to second think on life insurance. But let's get that phone. Let's not destroy that phone, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, people make poor choices, and you can't really always help them. I know people who go out and buy new cars, but they can't even afford to pay their monthly insurance bill. You have to prioritize, and you have to do what's right for your family. And I can advise, but I can't force people to make the right choices. Okay, I mean, it's just, we all live in a world that can be cruel at times, and I try to give you products that can help you avoid as much as possible some of those things that can happen to you. Our advertising campaign talks about mayhem. Well, it's not that far off. Mayhem is everywhere. Things happen all the time. It can be as simple as you didn't see the pole in your rear view mirror when you backed your car up and you got a little dent on your bumper, and it could be as big as your house burns down. Either way, I want to help you recover from that financially. I can't necessarily do anything about the emotional other than put my arm around you and let you know it's going to be okay, because we will get there. And I've been through this so many times with so many people. It does get better.
That's my next question. I mean, for the most part, and I say most part, Brandi and I can say, hey, you know what, I'll do that for free for you, right? Majority of our services are done strictly through us, right? So we can say, I'm going to do that free. You can hear a very sad, organic, authentic story, and you're still like, it's $26.79. I mean, like, how do you deal with that piece? It's no different than a doctor that has 10 deaths. You know what I mean? It's the nature of the world that we're in. How can you manage that piece?
Well, I did have a fellow who got laid off during the COVID. He's like, look, I need to put this stuff on hold for a while. I just can't afford it. I said, well, what if you put it on hold and something happens? Are you going to be better off for it? I'm like, we can, just don't pay for it. When you get your stimulus check, pay for it. We're not canceling people's insurance right now because this is all going on. You don't have to pay your bill on time. You have to pay your bill eventually.
Yeah.
But we can wait for you to recover, and you don't have to be without something.
That's good to know.
Yeah, they could cost your family, everything it has.
There's a couple brands out there, not insurance places, that have that phone companies or cable bills, and I've been pretty impressed with that, with no late fees, which has been kind of nice. So
yeah, I mean, we are.
Have you seen anything with COVID? Can you repeat yourself, Tom? I'm sorry.
I lost you there for a minute, Brian.
Gotcha. Can you repeat yourself by chance?
Yeah, I mean, we are all in this together. I mean, do I want to play, hardball with everybody and cancel their insurance because they've lost their job? Then they're not coming back. I mean, if you're thinking long term, you help your people out, you let them get through it, and then they're gonna, loyalty creates loyalty. If you want to be respected, you respect. If you want to create loyalty, you be loyal. You treat people the way you want to be treated.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that in about 5 minutes, okay? With saying that, let's kind of talk about after COVID, right? So COVID hit like March, right? Here we are in June, still going around. How has your transitions through work and personal been? You worked from home quite some time, as Brandi has as well, still, I think. So how's that been for you as far as extracurricular activities? You just went away this weekend, right? Sonia told us all at the group. You guys had a great cabin that you could fish at.
Actually, that's coming up next weekend.
Oh, it's actually okay. See, we all know where you are, Tom, okay? I mean, you went fishing this weekend, and I saw the pretty big fish. You were grilling it, I believe, on Sunday, maybe Saturday.
Yes. It was delicious.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Brandi, are you a fish person?
Yeah, I am. I
like
love
to
fish.
eat fish.
Yeah, and I love to go fishing, and so does Sonia. And I've caught bigger fish than that before. Not a lot, but I've always been in a boat or, standing on the shore. I was in a kayak, and that fish dragged me all over that river.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, I just kind of getting into kayaking. I went to a class that talked about paddle boating, canoeing, and kayaking. So I'm just trying to get involved in that this year. So, I think I told Brandi yesterday, COVID-19 brought on COVID-25 for me. And I was like, I'm done. I refuse to kind of creep back up there. For folks that know, I even recently, 2 years ago, I lost 75 pounds. So I refuse to get back there. So I have been biking, crazy biking. There's this very cool bike trail that I'm going to be going to again, and it's 11 miles long. It is oak openings through the Metro Park, and volunteers have built it, which I found very cool. And then every time they add a new obstacle piece, they open it up, which is super nice as well. So is that a little bit better? Am I breaking up?
You're better.
Okay. Yeah, that sadly, Zoom has taken quite a few hits in video connecting. So there's definitely some technical opportunities. This morning, I could not get on, and it kept booting me off when I was in a couple other meetings. So I apologize out there. It's not my fault. I have good internet. I have good internet, I promise. We download a lot, so we have to. So, bike riding has definitely been a thing for me. Brandi, I think we chuckled yesterday. Brandi, I think she's the only one that has actually negative about in COVID. So you've lost some weight in this crazy time.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the combination of eating home more or what, but I've lost some and I want to leave it off.
Good. What about you, Tom? How has your weight fluctuated?
I went up about 12 pounds, and it's mostly just because I couldn't go to the gym, for that amount of time. And I've been back there now for 2.5 weeks, and I've taken about half of it back off.
Nice. So,
we've been biking a lot also. We did 20 miles on Sunday, me and Sonia. So
I did 4. I'm excited. I did 4. Okay, I'll get to your 20. Rumor has it that every 16 miles that you bike, it's like running for 5.
You told me that. I will definitely ride a bike over running. I hate to run. If I'm running, look behind me. Somebody's chasing me.
True story. That's funny. Well, I think this is an awesome opportunity to kind of slide into our theme conversation, right? Especially with everything that's going on with COVID. And here we are, 2020, in conversations that I never thought we'd have to have. But as I did yesterday, those are conversations that are needed. When talking about culture in America as a whole. And I want to kind of start with talking about words. And tomato, right? Target. Why in America do we have words that make us sound less offensive when we're still trying to say the same thing, right? Or maybe a higher class? Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, words that meant something 20 years ago have a different meaning today, and perception of words. It's a really difficult thing. I don't really like to get into words that could offend people at all, because I don't want to offend anybody. I have my own opinions. Everybody's got own opinions. What I find really sad is that we can't disagree anymore and still be friends. It seems like that it's gotten to the point, I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are from, one side of the aisle or the other side of the aisle, and they're constantly going back and forth, and why can't we just talk about it and still be friends? I mean, I think that intelligent people can disagree, and that doesn't make anybody wrong or right, or especially in some of the issues that our society is facing. Change still needs to happen, but it's not going to happen if we just totally divide ourselves.
Can I jump in real quick, Brandi, or do you have something to say?
No, go ahead.
So I agree with what you're saying, with the exception that I still think, here's my opinion, strictly my opinion, nobody else's, right? I still think that there are some things, there are people out there that like A, right? I can understand if you like A and I don't, but when I feel like those are moral issues that you are on A side over, I struggle with that. And that's where I internalize and go, if that's what you stand for morally, I can't be your friend. I mean, there's just certain things that it just is, it's not like you like ketchup or mustard.
Right.
Again, my opinion on that piece.
No, I mean, there are situations, and, people make their own morals. I mean, and unfortunately, I'm not talking about holding anybody down for any choices that they make. That's wrong. It's unacceptable. I would never condone anything like that. When I was talking about that, I was talking more about, the political situation that everybody argues with, right versus left. When it comes to the discrimination issue, I don't even think that you could argue anything but everybody's equal. I mean, if you argue anything than that, then I have a problem.
I think the problem becomes that our systems are so deeply plagued with discriminatory laws and rules and practices, from segregation, from Jim Crow, further and further, even further back. Even the basis of our police system, which was based upon catching slaves, when you have a system that is still very heavily plagued with rules and laws that are not particularly in favor of everyone, there's bound to be some issue, especially in 2020, where we're still fighting for equality on other things. We have the LGBTQ support that we're fighting for. We also have, issues with immigrants and things like that we're also fighting for. But we have very basic issues that we have still not resolved. For instance, we moved back here from Texas. Texas is one of the only states that still adheres to some of the segregation laws when it comes to schooling. And when it came to...
Like, seriously?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So my son was placed into a classroom that was a little bit more rowdy. He was placed into a classroom where he was not necessarily getting the proper attention because there was so much attention going to some of the other kids. Now, luckily, we try to stay on top of schooling at home so that we don't have those issues in terms of him going to school and expecting the teacher to teach him. We do that at home. So what I did was I went and I spoke with his teacher and said, hey, I think this class is a little bit too slow for him. He probably needs to be moved up. And what I found was he was placed into a classroom based on the color of his skin. And as a mixed race child, in Texas, they did not give us the option. There is no mixed race. You're considered black or you're considered white. And that is just how the system was placed. So based upon his skin color, he was placed into a classroom that was a little bit slower with the education and so on and so forth. So we had to come up with a new curriculum with the superintendent, the principal, the teacher, and us had to sit down and come up with a new curriculum that would be better for him, because at that time he had already been placed. And when we called the school board in the state to find out why, it was based upon the segregation laws, and they had been trying to get those laws changed for the last 30 years and had not been successful. So when we talk about things like this, we're rooting a system and putting a system in place that is designed to kind of subscribe to this certain color of group should be getting poorer education. They should not get as much education. We got to talk about those issues, not just talk about them, but we have to fix them. And, you know, I think the political part comes into play because we have, regardless to where you stand on the issue, I think that everyone can agree and admit that our current legislation is a little, I would say, it's not a typical legislation or that we've seen in previous times. So I think that when there is some of that inconsistency in verbiage, when there's a rallying up and people are just simply trying to fight to get things leveled out and have equality across the board, there's bound to be some issues. So that's when it becomes a moral issue, because if you support, you know, a system that is still set up to oppress or still set up to, perhaps we'll change the word, since we want to be careful with words, set up to have inequality for everyone, then we are bound to run into issues where there's going to be some fighting, there's going to be some friendships lost, so on and so forth, right? So I think that's why we're in the situation we're in now, is because they feel so strongly about their particular position, and especially when it comes to, you know, just getting equality across the board. And then there are some that don't, just because that particular issue doesn't affect them, they don't think it's real, or they don't think that it's actually happening. But there are things that are happening across the country that we all have to agree that, you know, if we really want equality, and if we really speak in terms of appreciating others' culture, then we have to look at our laws. We have to look at the rules that we have in place in order to kind of abolish. First of all, we need to abolish those, and we need to rewrite new laws.
I'm soaking that in. I was in Holland yesterday, maybe the day before, and I was driving around the corner, and you guys know where the courtyard by the Marriott is. It's where we do our cocktails.
Yep.
Right around that bend. So I was going around the bend, and there was a group of about 4, maybe 5. What word do we use? We talk about tomato, right? Tomato. Target. Do we say African American? Do we say black? You know, what terminology here? I'm going to use the word black. So these group of black folks, young, I'd probably say maybe 18, 19, all the way down to maybe 16, 17. And they're walking in the middle of the road, right? So I pull up, I slow down, I roll my window down, I'm like, hey guys. And the girl who's young goes, what? Like with an attitude. I said, you guys cool? You guys okay? And the guy that was with her looked at me, and he like nailed down. He goes, you know, you're the only dude that stopped over here. And everyone just probably goes, but wait a minute, man, thanks. And was just as, you know, respectful as me, but was shocked that someone stopped, you know, and said, hey, are you okay? And after I did it, I thought, what did I just do? Like, I just opened myself up, right? You never know when that window is rolled down, what you're going to come to. It's not even my fight that they're angry at. You know what I mean? What have you guys seen in the community the last 12 days, 14 days?
Well, I've seen a lot of people who want to run their mouths about, you know, the issues and express their opinion, and not want to listen to other opinions. And everybody is entitled to their opinion, but you should listen to the opposing viewpoint at the same time. I guess that's what bugs me the most, is you got to listen. to everybody. I mean, if we don't have conversations, things aren't going to get better. You know, we got to have tough conversations, but they need to be civil. You know, they need to be real, and they need to be respectful. You know, I
agree. I agree. Conversation need to be respectful. I think, you know, in my own particular neighborhood, I should say, I think there's been a little bit of there's been a lot of disagreeing opinions, but I think right now we're on edge. We're in the middle of a upheaval of several different issues. There's not one particular issue that we're in right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic, right? So our unemployment is also the highest it's been in 60 years. So people are unemployed and they don't have jobs, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're also
a bad time.
scary, right? We're also in a election season, right? So we have that going on, and I apologize the gardening people here. We have that going on. Then we also have voting issues, right? There's a very poignant issue with voting right now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I can hear you great.
Okay. There's a very poignant issue going on with voting right now. For instance, today in the Atlanta area, there were several voting polls where voting booths did not work. All the people showed up to vote, they didn't work. That was predominantly in communities of color that the voting polls were not working, and so they were forced to use ballot boxes, like just, you know, handwritten ballots. So then it comes into an issue of, is our vote really being suppressed? We know that there are other laws and things in place that are suppressing votes. We know that there are other additional tactics that are in place in many areas. I come from the South. It's very prevalent. There are all these extra hurdles that communities of color are required to jump over. That's not an issue up for debate. It's fact, right? So we have all these issues going on at once. Then we have the shooting death of a man on camera. So there are so many issues going on right now there's not going to be a meeting of the mind. Everybody's not going to agree on one thing, whether you're pro the issue of immigration, whether you're pro we should wear masks, where we shouldn't wear masks. Like, there's not going to be any resolve in terms of everybody coming to the table and everybody agreeing on anything, because we have so many things that are going on right now that I think that we have not properly aligned ourselves for in order for us to tackle ahead of time, right? So that's the issue we're seeing now. So you have all this crazy going on, you have all this upheaval going on, where people are angry, and they're angry on both sides, you know. So I think that in order to dissect an issue like that, or to dissect what's really going on in the community, and to take a good temperature check, we have to look at America and say, hey, what have we done over the last 50 years to fortify communities of color? What have we done to fortify community policing, right? Some of the community policing has gone away, right? When I was coming up, you grew up, there was a police car in the neighborhood, and it kind of gave you a sense of we're safe. You know, some of that stuff has gone.
Calmness.
Right. You had DARE programs and things like that. And so I think that we have done a poor job over 50 years. And then now we have a administration that's extremely polarizing, that has kind of, I believe that has kind of brought some of this stuff up. And so whether we agree with all of the issues or not, I think that we can all say that there are things that need to be changed, because when we look at laws 2020 to when they were written, and you know, talking about equality, it just doesn't match. It, not at all. And especially for what I believe most Americans assume is happening. And I think the issue becomes, you know, you have communities that are saying, hey, this is what's happening to us, and you have other communities that say, oh, no, that's not real. But until you are experiencing or and willing to listen to what's actually going on or see what's actually going on, you won't have a meeting of the minds. And I think that's our big issue right now.
I agree. I'm struggling right now on a personal level. I'm beginning to have conversations, not beginning, let me rephrase that. I'm specifically having conversations right now with Jackson Robert because of what's going on, right? So we've always had these conversations. I have black cousins in my family. Jackson engages with them. His crew of 5 people includes a wide, diverse group of individuals. I think it's amazing, and he doesn't even see it. But specifically, we're having conversations right now because his grandfather is a police officer, right? So first and foremost, and I'm going to state this as a disclaimer, this is my opinion, nobody else's. I am a firm believer that it frustrates me. I have family members that are doing this, and it frustrates me that they are putting the need of the cops before the issue at hand. By bringing up that cops, yada, 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 cops, X, Y, Z, whatever that looks like. And it's not the issue that we need to be at. You're right, not all cops are bad, right? But sadly, these particular cops were. This is the issue we are. This is what we need to be looking at. Yeah. So I'm having conversations with Jackson on balance, right? To kind of talk about that cop aspect. Again, not all cops are bad, just like not all people are bad. You're going to have those people that make the choices. But still to make sure that he understands that that's not the issue on hand. The issue on hand is we have some cultural opportunities that are as clear as can be at this point, and we're in 2020, and sure. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't. It's heartbreaking. Tom, what about you? Are you having conversations with your dude? I mean, you have a
you have to.
Right, a 14-year-old.
He's almost 14. Yeah, the thing is that a lot of these problems that we still have in our country are because the family unit isn't as strong as it used to be. Like Brandi said, teachers are great, but the ultimate responsibility of my child's education rests on me.
Absolutely.
And teaching him about God. It's not my church's job, it's my job. Church is a nice tool, schools is a nice tool, but you have to raise your kids, all right? And you have to instill good morality and let them know that these things that he's seeing on TV, there's a reason for them. I agree with Brandi. These things have been going on since the 1860s and even before. I mean, the system was not set up properly. It's still probably the best system in the world, but it needs to change, and it's been very slow to change. And I understand why people are mad, and I don't blame anybody for being mad. It's just that destroying other people's small businesses does not get the agenda where it needs to be. It just hurts more people, and it gives fuel to people who want just to write it off. Write it off is look at how they are, and not that those people's opinions matter much, because they really shouldn't, but it just slows down the process of getting to where we need to be in the first place. And the media really seems to want to divide everybody. They handle this issue the same way they do the weather. We're gonna hype it up. We're gonna make it so that you want to watch us, that you keep tuning into us. Instead of getting to the heart of what the real issues are and helping the country grow and helping them get out of the systemic problems that we have. I don't find the value in it.
I agree with what you're saying, right? You shouldn't go looting stuff, right? You should be calm. Again, it doesn't get the issue right. But here is the flip side, and this is me being the debater, right?
No,
they took a knee, right? He took a knee. how much more peaceful. He was being respectful. He took a knee to give a message. We heard the message. I heard it. Brandi, did you hear it?
Loud and clear.
Right, Tom, I know you heard it. It didn't change.
Yeah.
What else are they supposed to do? They made an action. And guess what? Then it got on the news.
But the violence isn't going to change it either.
I agree. It sure isn't. But neither is being passive and literally taking knees. They got even more so.
I'm not saying passive.
Oh, I know. I know you're not.
Yeah, I'm saying, but a lot of the businesses that destroyed were minority-owned businesses. And there's 4 dead cops, and they're all minorities. I mean, that's not helping. It's not helping.
Well, I think we have to also look at the fact that a lot of what you see.
But did you see the white people that are doing that?
Say that again, Brian.
From what I have seen, if I was going to ratio it, I would say 3 to 5, 3 being white Caucasian people that are causing this. I haven't really seen very many minority people or black folks or people of color that have been doing this. Some of the things I've been seeing, I mean, one of my friends, I saw cuffed. If you know this guy, and he is literally spray painting a cop's car. White guy as can be, you know what I mean? And he's a young kid. He should know better, but he doesn't. But, I mean, these are white folks doing this looting. This isn't the black folks because they're mad.
Right.
They're probably still taking a knee somewhere. I mean,
well, and I think we have to also pay attention to the fact that, you have the looting and things like that are going on. But what do you tell? Exactly what can you tell people who are, first of all, they're sick, right? The pandemic, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and communities of color, statistically right now, we know, don't have access to the COVID testing, right? They're dying at larger rates. So that's one strike. Then because of COVID, they have no means of employment at this point, right? No one's hiring because everybody's in a bad way right now. And then you have something like this that happens. There's going to be an uproar. But I think that just as we say there are good cops and there are bad cops, we have to look at this and say, hey, there are protests and then there are knuckleheads. There are people that are out to cause just destruction. We cannot associate those people with the cause. However, we have to be careful with saying or calling even, and I said knucklehead, so we have to be careful with that because there is so much oppression and suppression and depression in these communities of color. We're watching people be killed. It's a dangerous place. And even with you pulling over to talk to those kids, they're probably on defense because right now is the wrong time in America to be pulled over with a white man in the car. And
that's right. I said, what the heck am I doing? I mean, You know what? No wonder that girl came at me like, what? What are you going to do? You're going to call me a name? You're going to throw something at me?
Absolutely.
I mean...
And they were on the defense. More than likely, they could have been on the defense because of what's going on in our country. I live in a community primarily white. I'm a black lady with a big afro. And I very often get the looks and the stares and the following around the store. Now, my education doesn't prevent that. Where I live doesn't prevent that. Who I'm married to doesn't prevent that. And what I do for a living doesn't prevent that. It's a matter of the skin, the color of my skin. So that's not something we can wash off. That's not a coat we can take off. It just happens. And luckily, you two fine gentlemen may not be the two people that are holding Black people to this standard of which, we've been hurt. We've been called animals, right? We've had all these things that have been called terminology in reference to Black people right now, even from our president. And though you guys may not be those people, that's still happening. Those people are still out there, right? So you have people that are angry. We have been begging for 400 years. Give us equality, 400 years. Then we had Jim Crow. We're just about 50 years removed from Jim Crow, and we're still stuck in Jim Crow rules. And we're still stuck in statistics that were used within healthcare that said Black women were primarily predisposition to be drug addicts, right? So now our healthcare system is letting Black women at higher rates than other die from childbirth, die from chronic pain issues, or pushing them into other avenues to try to get relief from that. I know that's true because I had the same issue. It took me years to get a diagnosis because I got labeled as a drug seeker when I honestly had a problem. I had a pain issue that needed to be taken care of. Now, it took me years to get that taken care of and thousands of dollars, but statistically right now in our system, because of a study done in the 60s, doctors still have in their mentality that Black people are pain seeking. Black people don't really have issues, and specifically with Black women. And there are a lot of articles. There's a great one that came out through Forbes. Times has done one. The Healthline has done one. The medical health journals have done them, because there's a large amount of Black people that are dying. So if we're not being killed in the hospital systems, and we're not watching our children die in hospital systems, we're being killed by police. If we're not being killed by police, we're dying from COVID because we can't get proper health care or proper testing. If we're not dying that way, they're starving. We have a huge food insecurity issue in America that doesn't only affect Black people. It also affects poor people of all colors, right? But in the wealthiest, one of the biggest countries and wealthiest countries on this planet, we still have this huge issue with food insecurity. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. And then over this time, we have billionaires that are making billions and billions and billions of dollars when we're in a worldwide crisis. Something is off there. We have to do a litmus test to find out what's really going on. We can be a capitalistic society, but we can also be a compassionate society. We can be a society that is looking to improve the system. So while we want to have those conversations, I think it's time out for the conversations, because we've been having those conversations for 400 years. The conversation needs to change. We just need to abolish these laws. We need to absolutely change these laws. Now, realistically speaking, I don't think anybody wants to burn down their home. I don't think anyone wants to see businesses go under. Hey, I'm from Tennessee. There was a white guy arrested for setting the courthouse on fire, and blamed it on some Black kids, but he was being recorded the entire time, right? So we're seeing more of that, as Tom mentioned, take away from the message. If that takes away from the message, we have to apply that same lens to policing. And we have to say that these bad cops take away from the good cops. They take away from the lens of community policing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we have big issues in the country right now, and it's going to take big legislation, positive, cohesive, collective work in order to improve the system. And it's also going to take conversations like these. Though they're uncomfortable, though we stand on multiple sides of the issue, there has to be conversations in our community that we can then translate those and educate our kids, and then educate, all of the people that make up our village.
I think I agree with that, and I think Tom said it best earlier when he stated, "You treat me the way I'm going to treat you." Right? Respect. What was that quote that you stated, Tom?
If you want to be respected, you have to respect. I mean, yeah. you have to. It comes down to the main commandment that Jesus gave us: treat others the way you want to be treated. Love everybody the way that you want to be loved. And if everybody did, they wouldn't have any of these problems.
Right. Everyone say love. Love. So speaking of love, you're getting a little getaway with the missus this weekend. It sounds very fun. I've heard it's like a cabin with fishing and a lake and kayaking and just kind of an all-exclusive.
Yeah, it's a interstate park called the Breaks. It's on the Virginia and Kentucky border. I think we got lucky I think normally it would have been booked way out, but with COVID, I don't think going. So we're taking Nolan and one of his buddies so that he could be a little more occupied other than just with his, mom and dad. And
absolutely. Well, that way mom and dad get some time alone too. I mean,
yeah.
That's important, Tom.
It is important. I have realized with Jackson Robert being 9, it's like, oh, you're there. Everywhere we go, there's Jackson Robert. So
We got one of those too. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Any big plans for yourself coming up this weekend, Brandi?
No, actually, my husband's on vacation this week, so we're kind of laying low and soaking all of this in.
Nice.
Just kind of, taking it easy.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a breath. Next weekend, we do our normal Father's Day getaway. So we head to KOA for the weekend, about 3 days. We, fish on the boat, just have a really nice time, just him and I. And then we invite our guy friends to come up with their kids on Saturday. No wives allowed. And we just kind of hang out with the kids. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So, well, listen, I appreciate your conversations and your input today, Tom. I appreciate hearing about you. But tell me this, if I was going to take one takeaway from Allstate, what would that be for you? Because I was surprised on how much you guys really do for the small business side as well. So what's your takeaway?
My takeaway, just that we're a good company. We care about people. We want to sell you insurance, but we don't want to oversell you insurance. We want to do it the right way. And insurance isn't a commodity. If it was all about price, everybody would have.
Uh-oh, Brian, you're breaking up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you a testimonial, because I'm just going to do it. So my brother-in-law I sent to you, you're very much aware. Oh, yeah, just so my internet connection is unstable. Is that better?
That's better now.
How's that?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
Frozen.
So a testimonial for Tom is from my brother-in-law. So my brother-in-law was paying X amount of dollars. Long story short, Tom was able to save him over $600 a month, right, Tom?
Yeah, he was really being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I don't often, that's an extreme case. That doesn't happen every
Now, he says that, but I've heard him save people minimally $200 to $300 on average. Is that fair?
But that's not
Okay.
600.
That's true, that's 600. But my point is Tom does save you money. And listen, for him to check to see if he's going to save you money, guess how much it costs? Tom, how much?
Zero. Doesn't cost
Right.
anything to find out.
Unless you want to take him to Big B Coffee and have a cup of coffee, because he's right there in the plaza. So, Tom, you're hanging out over in Maumee on Dussel, right?
That's correct.
You can be reached on Facebook with Tom's Got Your Back. That's TOMSGOTYOURBACK. Tom's, plural, Got Your Back. Or your phone number, Tom, what is it?
419-794-7766.
Perfect. It's also scrolling down below, as you guys had seen. It just went too fast and I couldn't see it. So if you are looking for any other specific needs, nothing is too big or too small for Brandi either. So you can kind of handle those specific needs. And that goes to being like booking for a Beyonce concert too, right, Brandi? Like you deal with like entertainment pieces as well, not just work-wise stuff.
Absolutely. One-stop shop, whatever you need,
yeah.
figure it out.
The worst thing she's going to do is say, listen, I don't do that, but I know someone that does.
Of course.
Right. So, well, listen, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you taking a listen to us today over here with Connecting Communities, where we have AppFlow. We also have Elite Bookkeeping Plus. We have our Prudential Remax Preferred with Justin Anus, and then supporting strategies are our sponsors of our podcast. So we're pretty excited to have those new as our summer sponsors. Tom, you were one of our sponsors last year in our season. So so we were able to kind of get some new folks out here today. So we do look forward to hearing from you folks. So leave those comments, give those suggestions if you are looking to sponsor or even be a guest. Feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you next week. Brandi, anything else that I missed?
Nope, you got it all. We'll see you next
No,
week.
I didn't miss anything? Perfect. Be safe, be well, stay canned, be well. Thanks, Tom. Bye, guys.